Today's video is sponsored by GameMaker Studio, which is a company I'm really excited to highlight, because I myself have even used GameMaker back in the day to create small personal projects and learn the basics of game development. If you've ever been interested in making your own games but didn't know where to start, GameMaker is the perfect beginner tool, because it's one of the easiest programs to use and there's virtually no limit to what it can do. Some of my favorite titles were made in GameMaker and I didn't even know it, like Katana Zero, Momodora, Rivals of Aether, Undertale, and Wandersong. You don't need to use any other software to create your masterpiece. GameMaker has it all, and its drag and drop system means you don't have to know extensive coding or computer languages to get started. On top of all this, there's extensive learning content provided by Yo-Yo Games themselves, in case you get stuck or just want to expand your creative knowledge. My point is that anyone can be successful using GameMaker. There's a thriving community and a free trial for you just waiting to be utilized. So use the link in the description below to start working with GameMaker today. Okay, on to the video. In a video several months back, I made a pretty emphatic statement. Confession time? I hate horror games. And that is still true today. I play games to relax and challenge myself, so just about the last thing I want out of those experiences is jump scares and triggering my fight or flight response. But all of that changed one cold February morning, when I decided on a whim to boot up Resident Evil 4, the highly acclaimed title in a franchise best known for its... and... thinking I would absolutely hate it. Little did I know that this one game would lead me on a journey to play the rest of the entire series and fall in love with its design. Yeah, I was just as surprised as you are. How could games with so many spooks and frights enthrall me that much? Well, today's good game design is gonna be a beefy one. Let's break down each entry and see what sets them apart from the rest of the horror genre. On paper, I feel like there's almost no reason why I should enjoy Resident Evil 4. It's a shooter with endless waves of the same enemies over and over, and it's basically Brown the video game. Talk about a departure from my usual mainstays. But there are several elements working together here that subverted my expectations going in. First off, Resident Evil is a lot less scary than I anticipated. It's more like a cheesy B-movie, complete with ridiculous one-liners from our protagonist Leon.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
And these guys are creepy, sure, but they don't rush up and eat your flesh immediately. They move slow and methodically, which sets up the most important game design system of the entire series: item and health management. You see, in all the Resident Evils, you have extremely limited ammunition and storage space for all the goodies you'll gather over the course of the game. In addition to fighting off hordes of zombies, you're constantly having to make sure you don't use too many bullets, or flippantly waste all your herbs and stuff, or you'll find yourself in quite the pickle later on. You'll be tempted to stock up and keep as many first aid sprays as you can, but eventually you'll run out of space for all your guns and extra ammo. So you have to pick and choose what's most important to carry with you, and what you should sell to the friendly neighborhood merchant.
Got something that might interest you.
I love that you can move everything around to make more space too. This almost becomes like its own little mini game to free up some room for a rocket launcher or something. But this whole concept is the real reason the game has any tension or suspenseful moments, because of how limited your tools for survival are and the fact that every bullet matters. Not necessarily because this ogre-looking freak of nature is screaming at you. You move sort of slow too, and your laser pointer isn't exactly gonna headshot baddies in record time or anything, so you have to be extremely careful with every shot, because you want to maximize damage so that you don't run out of resources. The most exhilarating and heart-pounding moment of the game for me was when I was fighting these parasite monsters where you have to use the thermal scope on your sniper rifle to hit specific parts of the body. Sniper ammo is already pretty rare, so I get nervous and end up missing a lot of shots and run out of bullets completely. This leads to a frantic encounter where I'm running around to avoid getting eaten, while also trying to open this janky door and just... Like, that's the real horror right there. You literally knife fight with a dude bro and blow up a gremlin, so it's not scary in a traditional sense, but each new enemy becomes a calculation of risk versus reward, and if it's even worth wasting your ammo or running by and trying to use your surroundings in order to survive. It's a great feedback loop and rewards you for exploring and investing in upgrades, because any chance to increase your survivability is very welcome. In fact, one of the coolest parts is that sure, you can heal yourself with a green herb, but if you gather one of each type and combine them together, you increase your maximum health permanently. So if you're patient and willing to carry some extra weight, you get a sweet bonus in the end. I love it. But all of this doesn't even begin to incorporate the other trademark of the Resident Evil series that ended up becoming my favorite when I played the next entry. It's puzzle box level design. I didn't realize it at the time, but RE4 was actually rather linear. You just went from one area to the next and fought whatever grotesque abomination came your way. But Resident Evil 2 quickly became the standout title for me because of how it used the single location of a Raccoon City police station to loop back on itself and slowly peel back its layers as you scout around and gain new items. All the previous elements of finite ammo and inventory space are still present, but it looks a little bit different here. Instead of a large briefcase and moving things around to make room, you have very few slots, but items only take up one or two of them at most. The caveat is that now you have to carry key items on your person as well, so you'll be juggling wants versus needs quite often this time. Instead of having to sell items away forever though, now you have an item storage box to stash things for later, which feels like a handier and less cumbersome system. No money or treasures are needed here. It's all about the specific items and weapons you scavenge along your quest. This also makes finding extra hit pouches to expand your inventory slots extremely rewarding, because you will constantly be weighing what's vital to take with you at particular moments. There are a lot more puzzle elements and blocked off paths that become available as you find keys and handy tools, but that doesn't mean the danger of enemies takes a backseat either. Infected are just as deadly as before, and in fact become more of a hindrance, because the narrow hallways you're traversing leave little room for improvisation and leading enemies out of the way. Often you'll need to deal with threats directly, or get creative by blocking them out before they even come inside, or stuffing grenades in their mouth if they get too close. Perhaps most interesting, however, is the addition of Mr. X, the invincible trenchcoat of doom that constantly chases you down. He has a nasty habit of showing up right in the direction you need to go, which means you'll have to turn around and find a new route to your destination, or try and lose him in one of the numerous offices and storage closets. Having an immediate hazard that can't go down by regular means forces you to think on your feet and become intimate with the station's layout, so you always have a backup plan in case things go awry. The combination of tense ammo and health management with using key items to advance further into the station, all while avoiding constant new perils, feels like the pinnacle of what Resident Evil can be capable of. What's fascinating is that the police station is only the first half of the game though, and once I left, I found myself being slowly let down by subpar areas that followed it. I didn't mind the sewers or laboratory, for example, but it did start to lose steam because of having to learn an entirely new location that was a lot less complex and split into smaller sections, so it wasn't quite as rewarding to navigate and discover the clever ways it reconnected with itself. I also found it really odd how every Resident Evil game puts you in the shoes of an entirely different player about 2/3 through the campaign. I get the impression that the developers know the series thrives best when you start with nothing and build a stockpile of supplies, so they try to do that again, I guess? But because it's always so short-lived, it just feels like a distraction to add playtime, rather than a satisfying change of pace. Either way, this one felt like the best of both worlds. Tense survival elements with gratifying puzzle box world design. The only thing missing is any actual horror. I guess Resident Evil's a lot less scary than I anticipated. Okay, I spoke too soon. I did not expect the simple change of switching to a first-person perspective to have such an impact on how terrifying this series can be. But the first few hours of Resi 7 definitely gave me pause. Something about the gory mutilations happening directly to you instead of another character makes it feel painfully visceral. You'd think I would quit because helplessly hiding from Jack hunting you down and expecting something to pop out of every corner was exactly the stuff I didn't like about horror games. games. But by this point, I had become utterly addicted to the survival aspects Resident Evil has to offer. And 7 is pretty similar to 2, in that your inventory is still just a few slots and you need to find the key items to unlock the baker's residence and escape. The biggest downfall here is that yet again, as soon as you leave the main building, the subsequent areas are smaller and more linear, making them much more forgettable in comparison. Of course, it's a little unrealistic to assume this humble family out in the sticks would have a 4-story mansion or something, but it seems like a lot of RE games fall victim to this. They have a stellar location to survey near the beginning, then slowly deflate as you continue outward. It's also worth mentioning Resident Evil 3 briefly, because while it's mostly a condensed version of RE2, its biggest sin is a lack of boss variety. Instead of a cast of increasingly disturbing creatures to fight like the other games, you basically only face off against Nemesis in this one, which in theory isn't an awful idea. You can tell they tried to make a more intense version of Mr. X that never stops pursuing you. But you come in contact with him 11 times over the 5-hour adventure, and for the most part you're simply running away since he's invincible anyway. It became so predictable after a while, it felt like a parody of itself. Like, come on, not again! I will say though, it does the best version of the giant bazooka kill of the final boss. I mean, this is so far beyond campy, it's fantastic. All of these titles are really engrossing experiences because of the gratification you get by successfully managing your resources to overcome the impossible. But this takes a very particular balance to pull off. Finding more ammo just in the nick of time and expanding your inventory right before requiring more key items to carry is clearly a very intentional progression that takes care and detail from the developers to perfect. And this is only more apparent when you play the titles that don't seem to strike that balance correctly. The first Resident Evil is certainly a departure from the rest of the series, but not just for the obvious reasons of a fixed camera perspective and tank controls if you choose to use them. It's also widely different because while the puzzle box world is still there in full force, the inventory system is far too limited. You only have 8 slots period, or 6 if you play as Chris Redfield, with no way to increase its size. And this wouldn't be too terrible except for the plethora of cumbersome items it wants you to carry around at the same time. Guns, ammo, and health of course take up a slot, but there's also other stuff like a lighter and the fuel canteen that both need to be carried if you want to burn bodies so they don't come back to life later. Or the most egregious, ribbon ink, which takes up an item slot just to save your game. And it's in limited quantity too, so if you run out and die 30 minutes later, you'll be sent back to your previous save file. This is a contentious choice because you could make the argument that it raises the stakes and makes each decision more intense since it might send you back further. But in all of the other games, I didn't get the sense of tension from replaying sections I've already completed. It was about the long haul of maintaining enough assets to outlast the entire journey. Even in other titles, when I died and it sent me back a little ways, it was kind of annoying because I just did the same thing again until I beat that specific challenge, and any sense of surprise was long gone. One-hit kills are another big gripe I have with the series as a whole, especially when it involves QuickTime events. But it felt extra painful in RE1 because many of the puzzles are booby-trapped with collapsing ceilings, or gotcha spike walls that end in certain doom unless you get the answer right on your first attempt. I still don't know how to solve the armor room without looking it up. The pictures don't indicate anything special, and I didn't even realize you had to push the statues in twice to trigger them at first. But when you hit the button, it'll poison you unless you get it correct. There's no way to know if it's right unless you push your luck. This room is so obscure. You need to get the fish hook, bee, and a different bee, then hit a switch underneath that you can't see, combine the items in a particular way, then put the bees in different spots, but watch out, you'll also get attacked by a real bee for funsies too. The solutions don't feel nearly as intuitive as future titles, and leads to annoying walks back when you fail due to the arbitrary limitations they decided to include. It also felt like a lot of strategy was taken away because you can't really aim your gun, so instead a zombie will always take a specific number of bullets to take down. This is only amplified by the arduous door transitions in every room, so it just adds needless playtime to do virtually the same tasks, and playing them back to back felt especially jarring. Oh, you don't have the right key, sorry, now you need to walk back to the item box, which is
8 rooms away.
But look, at least Resident Evil 1 still had the elements I loved about the series. 5 and 6 just feel like entirely different games. Forget any importance of the inventory, enemies keep dropping endless amounts of ammo, and it's about as linear as can be. Obviously, co-op was the focus for these games, and while I'm sure that would still be fun for those wanting that experience, it's essentially a run-and-gun shooter at this point, and bosses are just giant damage sponges, like, why? I should bring up that they included bonus modes that are very similar to this in Resident Evil 2 and 3, just brute forcing your way through wave after wave with a stockpile of ammo, and I'm glad they included stuff like this for a wider audience, but it's not quite what I'm looking for out of an RE game at this point. But it looks like I picked the perfect time to get into the series because Resident Evil Village just so happened to release right after I finished the other entries. And I don't want to jump the gun or anything, but I think it's the best one to date. It brings all the best parts of the games together while leaving the inferior aspects in the past. This is the first one to bring back the bigger inventory from RE4, as well as the merchant, and I might like this guy even more.
What are you buying? Just something an old friend of mine used to say.
It's not that the item box system is worse or anything, but all the treasures and things to buy certainly incentivizes you to explore and find all the hidden goodies. But they also got rid of Resident Evil 4's linearity and have a fully interconnected map with all the RE2 goodness as well. They even included those permanent health upgrades I loved so much, this time in the form of meals by bringing meat from animals to the merchant, which also helps to reinforce the improved crafting system. Before, you could combine herbs or gunpowder to make health or ammo, but now you can fashion all kinds of things if you purchase the blueprints. More options here only increases player expression and allows them to employ a variety of different strategies. Don't think it's just a rehash of the franchise greatest hits though. There's a lot of first-time additions as well, like the entire village acting as a hub world that you return to and unlock new paths regularly. So now, not only is Castle Dimitrescu and the other locales full of loops and shortcuts, but everywhere you go might connect back in some way. And if you're extra explorative and try to find all of the world's kindnesses, you might even stumble upon secret optional boss fights, which is another series first and an amazing surprise when you find one. But the biggest and most welcome change is the completely different setting. Forget sewers and laboratories, you're in straight up Transylvania now. And this European identity made for some really cool connections that they couldn't do before. Like, take the Magnum for example, a Resident Evil staple. This is the extremely overpowered pistol with very limited ammunition, which is great to use against boss fights. But here they introduce werewolves, which are brutally difficult enemies who soak up all your attacks. Until you gain the Magnum with its silver bullets, and now you can take them down with ease. It ties in a familiar mechanic with the new theming in beautiful ways. Of course, it's not a perfect game, I do have my complaints. Even though I prefer this inventory system, I never found myself running out of space this time, and near the end of the game, I felt pretty overpowered with the weaponry it allowed me to use. In fact, the Stronghold in particular flirted with the run and gun stuff we talked about from RE5 and 6, and almost started to feel like Doom or something, where you just have to keep blowing off zombie heads in an arena until the door opens up. Again, neat to include diversity in game styles, but it started to muddy the identity it set so strongly from the beginning. I also feel like the change of scenery would have been a great excuse to explore some different weapon types, but they mainly stuck with tradition here. I mean, hey, the shotgun is effective, but why not give me a harpoon or, I don't know, a cane sword or something? I will say the other locations past Castle Dimitrescu were still pretty solid though. They even delved into psychological horror at one point, which was, memorable to say the least. I'm just so impressed with their ability to reconnect areas to itself so effortlessly. I never got lost or had to check my map to figure out where to go, because they have the skill of level design down to a science. This was the first time I really wanted to scour every corner of the world and find all the hidden rewards, and it just proves to me how much they've mastered that balance of tension and battles versus exploration and puzzle solving. The first showdown in the village, where I was running out of bullets left and right, crafting more on the fly, and trying to outrun Lycans, was so reminiscent of my initial experience in Resident Evil 4, and it brought everything full circle for me. So, are the games still scary? I mean, sometimes. But the thing is, you'll go from cowering away from tentacled monsters to duking it out Robot Wars style, so I mean, at the end of the day, the incredible design of the series overpowered my fear of the frights, and was too compelling to pass up. After almost 50 hours of gameplay, I am easily a die-hard fan of Resident Evil now, and can't wait to see where it goes next. If you've played the Resident Evil series, what do you enjoy most about it? Do you have a favorite title, and why? Or is there another franchise you avoided for some reason, but then gave it a go and love it now? Let me know in the comments below, and let's talk about it. It's always a joy when you discover a new classic in your gaming repertoire. And deciding to take the plunge despite my better judgment helped me realize that if I avoid certain titles because of my misconceptions, I might just miss a new personal favorite. Thanks for watching another episode of Good Game Design. I'll see you next time. Stay frosty, my friends. Hey, are you following me on Twitch? You need to be following me on Twitch. We're about to enter the summer of Snowman since I actually have time to stream nowadays and am doing so quite often. You might see speedruns, mods and hacks, or maybe even catch me making my own Kaizo game. You can give suggestions about what you'd like to see in it. And hey, since you're the kind of person that sticks around till the very end of a 20-minute video, you're exactly who I'd like to be there. Check it out at twitch.tv/snowmangaming and be sure to follow me on Twitter as well, so you never miss a notification when I go live. I'll see you at the next stream. Bye-bye!